All right, today we're going to dive deep into one of the most daring and honestly decisive moments of the Nigerian Civil War. We're talking about the Bonny Landing. This was an incredibly audacious amphibious assault, a real high-stakes gamble that would completely change the course of the entire conflict. So I want you to picture this. It's 1967. A young nation, not even a decade old, is literally at war with itself. And its navy? It's so new it's practically still got the paint drying. And this Navy gets tasked with an operation that would make even the world's most experienced military powers sweat. This is the story of a massive gamble that could do one of two things: win the war or lead to absolute, total disaster. Okay, so to really get why this landing was so incredibly critical, we need to rewind just a little bit. The years right after Nigeria's independence in 1960, they were turbulent, to say the least. You had all these tensions simmering, political, ethnic, over resources, and they just boiled over. This led to two military coups back-to-back in 1966. All of this violence came to a head when the eastern region just broke away, declaring itself the Republic of Biafra. And by July 1967, boom, the nation was in a full-blown civil war. Now, with the eastern region gone, the federal military government back in Lagos was facing something much bigger than just a rebellion. I mean, this was a genuine existential crisis. Think about it. If Biafra could just up and leave, it threatened the entire idea of Nigeria as one single unified country. And here's the kicker. The new Republic of Biafra, led by Lieutenant Colonel Ojukwu, immediately had a massive advantage. Why? Because its territory included Nigeria's entire oil coastline. We're talking about the nation's immense oil wealth, the economic heart of the entire country. So for the federal government, getting that coastline back wasn't just an option, it was an absolute non-negotiable necessity. So the big question for the federal high command was, how do you reclaim a coastline and cripple a brand new state at the same time? Well, they came up with a classic two-pronged military strategy to try and end this war fast. And their entire plan was built on one single idea: encirclement. The goal was basically to squeeze Biafra from all sides. You'd have the army pushing down from the north. At the same time, the young Nigerian Navy would throw up a blockade and, this is the crucial part, launch a series of amphibious landings to grab the coast. If they could pull it off, they'd cut Biafra off from everything: trade, supplies, and most importantly, all that oil money. But here's the thing about amphibious landings. They are one of the most complex, most dangerous, most difficult operations you can attempt in warfare. Everything could go wrong. The success of this entire encirclement strategy really boiled down to two things: picking the exact right target, and maybe even more important, having the right person to plan the whole thing. And that person, well, that was Commander James Raway. He was a British officer on contract with the Nigerian Navy. And he was the one handed the absolutely immense responsibility of drawing up the plans for this naval invasion. And let me tell you, Raw's background was almost tailor-made for this exact kind of challenge. I mean, this wasn't just some desk jockey. As a teenager during World War II, he literally navigated a landing craft onto Utah Beach on D-Day. On top of that, he was a trained commando and a specialist hydrographer. That's someone who understands coastlines, tides, and currents better than almost anyone. He was, no exaggeration, the perfect man for this job. And this quote you see here, it really tells you everything you need to know about the guy. When he was first asked to help start the Nigerian Navy, this was his answer. This was a man who didn't just accept a challenge, he ran towards it. And planning this landing, well, it was going to be the biggest challenge of his entire career. So, Rowie gets to work meticulously looking at three potential targets. First up, Port Harcourt. This was the big prize for sure, but it was 40 miles up a narrow winding river. A fleet trying to get up there would be a sitting duck for hours. Rowie himself said it would invite disaster. Okay, so Port Harcourt is out. What about Opobo? Well, there were just too many unknowns. Water depth, the terrain, too risky. And that left Bonny. Now, it was defended, absolutely, but it was an island, which meant it would be easier to hold onto once you took it. And crucially, the river was deep enough for his ships. The choice was clear. Bonny was the target. So, with Bonny locked in as the target, Ron Ray drafts the official plan, calling it Naval Operation Number 1. And, on paper, it looked great. A nice, methodical assault. But in reality, this was a massive all-or-nothing gamble. One tiny misstep, and the entire federal war effort could go up in smoke. The plan itself was pretty straightforward. You'd have a first wave land up north, cutting off any escape or reinforcements. Then a second wave would come in to really push the attack. And finally, a third wave would land to secure the whole island after the main town fell. Classic, by-the-book stuff.
But, oh man, the what-ifs were staggering. What if the Biafrans had laid mines in the river? What if they'd moved the buoys to run the ships aground? What if they had big guns on the coast, just waiting for high tide? And that's just the enemy. They also had their own problems: a super inexperienced navy, equipment that might have been sabotaged by defectors, and an army and navy that had never, not once, worked together on an operation like this. The whole thing was a house of cards.
So how do you overcome odds like that? Well, with a whole lot of discipline and a little bit of cunning. The forces practiced over and over and over again, in total secrecy. The whole naval base was on lockdown, and Rawi himself pinpointed the perfect moment to attack: a moonless night with a high tide scheduled to hit right at dawn. That gave the maximum surprise and the perfect water conditions for the landing craft. So the plan was set. The risks were, well, as accounted for as they could be. The stage was set for what would become a massive turning point in the war.
And so, under the cover of total darkness, on July 25, 1967, their own D-Day, the Federal Task Force began to move silently into position.
First order of business for Rui: destroy the signal station on Bonny. That would instantly cut the island off from its command back in Port Harcourt. Done. As the Federal ships opened up their bombardment, they were met by a Biafran warship, the NNS Ibadan. For a moment, there's this brief, sharp naval battle right at dawn, but it ends when the Ibadan takes a direct hit to its engine room, knocking it out of the fight. And despite a few small hitches, one of the landing craft got stuck for a bit, the assault was just overwhelming. The Biafran forces were totally caught by surprise, and they just didn't have what it took to take advantage of any small mistakes. The result? Well, get this. In just 2 hours, the entire island of Bonny was captured. The victory was total, and its impact was immense. On a military level, it was the crucial first piece of the puzzle for encircling Biafra. Psychologically, you can't overstate the morale boost for the federal forces. Economically, it sent a crystal-clear message to all the international oil companies about who was really in control of the coast. And historically, this was a truly groundbreaking moment for a modern African military. And to put that into perspective for a second, all the previous big amphibious assaults in Africa, like the ones you saw in World War II, were run by European or American forces. The Bonny Landing was the first major operation of its kind that was planned and executed from start to finish by a modern Black African state's-owned forces. That's a huge milestone. So in the end, the Bonny Landing was so much more than just a battle. It was this incredible testament to how meticulous planning, brilliant leadership, and taking a calculated risk can let a young, inexperienced institution overcome a truly monumental challenge. And it really makes you think, right? It's a powerful lesson in how any new organization, whether it's military or not, can face down its greatest tests and win.